Welcome to the Saturday Morning Nerd Show. I'm your host, Marcus Blake. Joined with me, as always, is the brewing sailor, Mr. Brendan Smith.
Hello, nerds.
And Chad Womack is not with us right now. He may be joining us later. Skynet is becoming self-aware at his studio, which means he's having technical difficulties. That's what we call technical difficulties at that nerd show. Skynet has become self-aware. But anyway, we are joined with a guest, Jimmy Alford, who actually gets to claim he is a professional gaming teacher and nerd. He is the esports coach at Ryan High School in Denton, Texas. So he is joining us today because he wrote an editorial for us that you can read online titled Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2 proves that Zack Snyder is a terrible storyteller. And you should go read that, because it's quite hilarious, and we're going to talk about.
Say it on the face of it.
Yeah,
I concur.
Yeah, it's we're going to get into Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2, mostly 2, a little bit towards the end of the show. We have some things to say about it, and anyway, and there are some things that from professional nerds Zack Snyder needs to hear. So it'll be kind of a little group therapy intervention session here at the Saturday Morning Nerd Show. All right, we're going to start off with the big movie this week that everybody, or last week I should say, that everybody should see. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. It is Guy Ritchie's latest movie based on a true story during World War II. And if you don't know the story, it's about the formation of the 1st Special Forces Group, the formation of the SAS, and kind of the brainchild, too, of Ian Fleming when he was working for the ministry during World War II. And the guy who led the group is literally the basis for James Bond, Major Gus March, played by Henry Cavill. So Henry Cavill may never get to actually be James Bond, but he does get to play the guy who inspired James Bond.
And probably have a lot more fun doing it because it's Guy Ritchie directing and not Barbara Broccoli producing.
So, hey, on the bright side, it's not the creative team behind The Witcher doing it. So.
Jesus, thank Christ for that.
Well, hey, look, the first season of The Witcher was fine. I mean, until you got to dragons.
Yeah, look, fine. Frustrated, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. Yes.
I don't hate the Henry Cavill seasons. We're just not going to watch the rest of it. But I did see that they finally announced that they are going to end on season 5.
Yes, because Dollar Store Thor has now become the Walmart Witcher, great valued Geralt.
Pretty much.
Everyone knows if you're going to make money, in Hollywood, you've got to let things limp along and die a slow, painful death rather than maximizing and ending it where everyone loves you.
And that's where I just appreciate David Zaslav, and he came in and took one look at Batgirl and said, no, we're going to take the write-off.
Yeah. Although, from a Mystery Science Theater 3000 point of view, I am very curious.
It is a great loss. I will admit that. It is a great loss for the Mystery Science Theater.
Just like I want to see the pilot with, Adrian Palacki as Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, look. If you want Mystery Science Theater material, all you have to do is watch the Batgirl series that was on CW.
No, that's Batwoman. That's Batwoman.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's worse.
I don't want to meet either one of them, honestly. So,
yeah.
I have a feeling that this is, in my mind, when the first actress left, and I forget her name, and I apologize. I think
Ruby Rose. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure her response was when she filmed her last thing, fuck this, I'm out of here. I don't care.
She just got tired of putting a mask with an attached red wig on every day?
Oh, yeah, because
why?
Just remember, this is the CW. So for every good thing they do, the first 5 seasons of the Arrow, there's at least 2 things they do wrong.
Okay, look, yeah, they did the Arrow just fine. They did the Flash just fine. They did the Flash so good. In fact, I wish they'd done that as it made him in the movie
Well,
instead
yeah, he
of
was much
what they
well.
actually
Like
came out.
later seasons of the Flash, we're gonna go down this rabbit hole, but later seasons of the Flash just went into CW's ridiculousness. But the early seasons of Flash, like
Yeah.
season 2 of Arrow, season 1 of Flash, season 2 of Flash, season 3 of Arrow, that was all amazing television. They really did a great job there. And then they leaned heavily into the 90210 aspects and the Melrose Place aspects of those shows towards the end. And yeah, okay.
Honestly, I think
It
a lot of
is.
that has to do with the fact that, COVID happened and writer strikes. At least that's what I would like to believe.
I will give you writer strikes 100% there. But
Well,
here's all you need to know about Doug Race. Here's all you need to know about Batwoman. Batwoman was so bad. Doug Race Scott, who's a phenomenal Scottish actor,
yeah.
bailed after the first season and went on to be in this show called Crime, which you can see on Amazon Prime in Scotland. He preferred Scottish television over Batwoman. And let me tell you something, he made the right choice. Crime's a great show. And if you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Oh, yeah. You can probably find that on Acorn, right? Or is it?
It's on the it's I think it's either on BritBox or Acorn channel on Amazon Prime. But it's fantastic. Go watch it. He's awesome in it.
Think they should just combine both those channels.
Right, but they've got to maximize their money. So
right. But anyway, Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Yeah, it's a great movie. To me, this is Guy Ritchie's best. The cast is great. Alan Ritson, if you love him as Jack Reacher kicking butt, you're going to love him in this movie. Everything works. Pacing is great. There's nothing that needs to be edited, and you can get over a really terrible Winston Churchill. And I hope that they do 1 or 2 sequels with everybody on some of their other missions. Because, I mean, in a lot of ways, I'll put it to you this way. Since we didn't get a sequel to the A-Team movie, which I think we should have, because that still surprises me how good it was, especially when Rampage Jackson being BA.
And I'm gonna butcher this guy's name. I apologize, but the other guy who I'm really interested in seeing in this is Babs Olusegun, and I hope I pronounced that right. I really tried. So Babs, if I fucked it up, I apologize. But everything, this dude is a seriously underrated actor. He has massive chops, and everything he has been in has been really good. For those who don't know who he is, he's Dr. Mbenga from Strange New Worlds. He
had a bit part in the TV show with, I know who you're talking about. I love
Sneaky Pete, Black Mirror, The Defenders.
Just a second. Sorry, we're going to take a quick turn. Chad, can you hear us? Of course. Well, anyway, Chad's going to figure out the audio problem on his end, and we're going to continue. All right. But anyway, yes, go see that movie. It's absolutely worth it. It's worth the price of the movie ticket. As I said, I pretty much think it's Guy Ritchie's best.
By the way, that guy has just been crushing it lately with the Gentleman TV show on Netflix,
which was really good.
Oh, I mean, just absolutely crushing it.
Speaking of shows that have popped up on Amazon, Brit show. I've seen all of it because I did actually subscribe to BritBox for a while, and it was great. Great little Irish show, Mrs. Brown's Boys. So think Irish Medea, kind of set in kind of a stage production setting, and but with Irish humor, lots of cursing. You should absolutely watch this show. It is free on Amazon right now. And to make it even better, they decided to merge 2 worlds together and actually made a Medea movie where one of the characters from his world was marrying somebody from Ireland, and the characters came over. So Brendan O'Carroll as Mrs. Brown and Tyler Perry as Medea going at it made that movie a hell of a lot. Anyway, that's my recommendation. Chad still can't hear us? Okay.
Oh, I'm gonna guess that's a no.
Uh,
Although the thinking man face is nice.
Chad is going to do his best mime impersonation.
Because a mime is a terrible thing to waste.
Okay, Chad, you can't hear us at all?
I'm guessing the random fingers pointing at the screen says no.
All right. Well, we'll give him a chance to fix that, but we got to jump into other things. So not really any major nerd news or anything that's going on this week.
I do have one thing, if you don't mind.
Hold on.
Okay. I'm holding.
Okay. We've got a lot to talk about, and we have got to get this done. So we'll get into other things later. But we wanted to start with this week's sign of the apocalypse, because I think this is a better news story and just a fun way to complain about everything. Martin Scorsese announced this week that he wants to make a biopic of Frank Sinatra, because, you know, who wouldn't? Starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Feel free to throw up. So I want you to think about that for a moment. Leonardo DiCaprio trying to play Frank Sinatra.
I'd like to say that we've already had the quintessential Frank Sinatra, and that was, of course, Joe Piscopo on Saturday Night Live. You are blind as a bat, and I have sight.
Yeah, I know.
Look, he already did so much with AI in The Irishman. Why doesn't he? And there's so much film with Frank Sinatra in it. Why doesn't he just do an AI Frank Sinatra?
Probably because Frank
not?
Sinatra's family would sue the shit out of him.
Well, I
Frank Jr.
would sue the shit out of him for making this movie, because I guarantee you, I don't. I mean, it's probably going to be watchable. All of his movies are watchable, but why?
Well, my question is, you're trying to tell a story that you obviously want to make a 4 or 5 hour movie, and then you have the audacity to make people sit down in the theater and watch it without an intermission.
Here's my thing.
And anytime somebody brings that up, your editor gets on Twitter or, you know, the internet and say, no, we shouldn't have intermissions in long epic movies whatsoever. You should sit there. Well, yeah, because my 40-something-year-old bladder is going to totally make it through a 3.5 hour fucking boring movie.
That's what I'm going to do. Whenever his producer says that, or, you know, agent or whatever, I'm just going to be like, okay, there, tough guy. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to sit down and watch one of your clients' movies, and I'm going to force feed you the liquor or soda or tea or whatever it is, beverage of your choice. And then I'm going to deny you access to a bathroom for 5 hours.
Yeah. Let's see how you like it.
No, it's even worse than that, because, you know, I hate to be the well actually guy, but the well actually guy in me wants to say that they had intermissions from the get-go, from the earliest days of theater and movies. I mean, if you went and watched The Wizard of Oz, if you were old enough to have seen that in theaters, it had an intermission.
Yeah.
For a reason.
Right. Also, can we get rid of the crap before movies that we have now? Can we just bring back the Looney Tunes reels and the news reels that used to come up before the movies? And I'm not talking like, I don't want news reels of modern news. I would like actual old 1940s news reels, because they'd be more freaking entertaining than anything that's done before the movies right now.
Well, that's a whole nother can of worms. But here's the thing. At some point, movie directors have to retire or finance their own films. And here's why I at least have respect for Francis Ford Coppola. At least he's not wasting money from studios. He financed his big opus, Megapolis, okay, out of his own pocket. I don't know if it's going to be good. They said it was unfilmable. I'm sure it's a great, big, huge piece of art worth seeing. Probably still better than Avatar. That's not saying much. But I'm sure there's also going to be an intermission in the movie.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't even know if we're going to know when it's going to come out, because last time I heard about the movie, they were still fighting over the fact they're not going to give him the marketing budget that he thinks the movie needs. So who knows if we're going to see anything but maybe posters, slapped up on telephone poles, in LA. Sorry. And
Hey,
if you're going to talk about old directors, I
hey,
can't help but mention. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say those not wannabe, but up and coming actors that are in goofy costumes or whatever around the Chinese
Yeah.
scene in LA. Hey, get some flyers and make them hand them out.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
let's go old school. But I'm
But if
just
you're going to
saying.
talk about old actors, I can't help but bring up The Irishman again and this Frank Sinatra movie. I'm sorry, I did not like The Irishman. It was so long and so slow and so boring. And I don't care how good the AI was, it still looked really unnatural.
Do you realize that you could have watched the Jimmy Hoffa movie and Goodfellas in a row at the same amount of time as we watched The Irishman? And
And
those
would
two
have twice
stories,
as entertained.
right, basically tell the same story. You know
And
what I
that, and here's the deal. He made that Irishman movie like out of a bit of nostalgia for himself. Okay, the old man is nostalgia, and that's what this Frank Sinatra movie is going to be. It's going to be a 5-hour nostalgia trip for him back in the
Yeah,
day when he was a middle-aged man in the 60s.
yeah.
Sorry.
First of all, we also know it's never going to be believable with Leonardo DiCaprio as Frank Sinatra for multiple reasons, but the most important reason, we know that he doesn't sleep with anybody under over 25. So
Can he
how,
sing?
how can we make it believable as him as Frank Sinatra sleeping with somewhat older women? Well, but then again, wasn't Mia Farrow like barely almost 30 when she was with Frank Sinatra and he was kind of old? I don't know. Maybe it will
I
work.
think Frank Sinatra kind of did what he wanted to do.
That is true. But at the same time, I'm like, really, of all the actors, and maybe some that actually have some experience singing, Leonardo DiCaprio, that's the guy that should be Frank Sinatra.
Although here's my point to Leo. Anytime somebody tells me Leo's so cool, I'm like, yeah, anybody who played second fiddle to Kirk Cameron isn't cool.
Okay, look, and let's not mention the fact that they're going to have to heavily make up Leonardo DiCaprio to make him look like Frank Sinatra. He doesn't look like him even in the slightest. Walter Goggins looks more like Frank Sinatra than Leonardo DiCaprio.
That is actually true.
Although I will say this, Walton Goggins would make an amazing Dean Martin.
I would give you that too.
Okay.
I think he's got that swagger to be Dean. Dean's got Dean. Even when Frank was there, Dean knew he was the coolest guy in the room.
The problem with telling any kind of story about Frank Sinatra is you almost have to do it as a series. I mean,
life's too big. What are you gonna fit his music? You're gonna fit his music stage and movie career into even a robust 4-hour movie? No, that's gonna scratch the surface.
Well,
don't speak that into the atmosphere about another series from this director. Good God!
I'm saying that it's
not
already
saying from him.
I'm just saying it's already been done. Philip Kasnoff, great up and coming '80s actor, he was in North and South and stuff like that. He did a great Frank Sinatra in that made-for-TV series. Okay, you've already done it, and the way they ended that series with him doing his great comeback show at Madison Square Garden, and he actually knew how to sing. So I'm like, hey, here's another one that actually did it better, and that will be better than Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't know if anybody remembers that Australian Western from the 80s made by Disney with Kirk Douglas, the man from Snowy River. Kirk Douglas played dual roles in the movie. Okay, well, never mind. Anyway, the young actor who played the young cowboy in the movie. Okay. Skynet has become self-aware with Jimmy.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Working on it.
Hey.
At least we still have audio. It is a podcast after all.
No free advertising for EOS webcam utility. Come on. Shameful promotion. But anyway, this guy, he did Frank Sinatra, an Australian actor, and sang really well. He would be better than Leonardo DiCaprio. But anyway, yeah, so that's going to happen, and that's another movie that we're just not going to review and want to see and have anything to do with. Because I think after Killers of the Flower Moon, a 4-hour fucking movie telling yet another story about how white men conned Native Americans out of their land and oil rights and whatever, that you could have told in 90 minutes.
Hey,
Maybe
I
should
love the
retire.
concept. I do miss when he used to make fun movies about
Sure.
people being beat to death with baseball bats. Just saying. Casino and Goodfellas. It's very,
Yeah.
the early '90s. I'm very nostalgia for that, little
You
piece of
know,
history.
um, I almost feel like Scorsese should have been done when they finally gave him an Oscar for The Departed. Not that The Departed was his greatest movie. It was almost like, okay, fine, we'll recognize you. We'll give you an Oscar, even though you should have gotten it before. And it was a remake of Internal Affairs anyway. And let's put, Irish actors playing Italians or Italians playing Irish and whatnot. But whatever. At that point, like, okay, we've given you your Oscar. You can go now. You're done. You're retired. Forced
I
retirement.
don't know. I think half the people just liked the movie because it had, Jack Nicholson in it and
And
being
he was
him.
really
He's just
good.
playing himself,
Yeah,
which is fine.
I will give him that. I mean, so, all right. Well, sorry that we had to bring bad news with this week's Out of the Apocalypse, but we want to give everybody a fair warning. Here's a movie that you definitely don't need to see. And oh my God, I'm gonna have to drink lots of alcohol just to wash those thoughts out of my head later. Okay, so the next thing that we have to talk about, we're going to talk about Amazon's Fallout series, and you might think that we're going to have one big complaint session. No, not really. Actually, we were pleasantly surprised. And let me put some things into perspective. Outside of Reacher and Bosch, we do not really trust Amazon to do a good show after Rings of Power. So doing a video game adaptation, it's like,
I don't know. I am a fan of Jeremy Clarkson and the baby boomer race car crew
But
over there
that's
on
but that's
Amazon.
not a
But I
scripted
was always
show.
a big fan.
But
Huh?
that's not a scripted show. That's something that Amazon has zero control over. That's a lot like this,
You say it's not scripted.
But all right, there's not a script. Okay, there is not script writers. I mean, there
but
is a free form show.
mean like reality TV?
It is a free form show where they go back and forth and they talk and they interview people and they do. Okay, it is not. There is not. Okay, we have to write a story. It is not a narrative.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're just being funny about it. No, it is a great show and it's one of the best on Amazon. But like I said, we can't really trust them to put out good nerd content after Rings of Power. So it's like, but let's get to Fallout. Um, the first thing to remember for fans out there is this is its own unique story that's not from the games. This is a different vault, and you do get a little bit of lore about vault tech and all that. Now, I already had our discussion with our gaming editor Omri about, why he hated it and why it took away from the lore of the games and whatnot. So I get complaints personally. And one of the things we're going to talk about is, does your adaptation have to be exactly like the game? But looking at Fallout as a whole, with performances and stuff like that, Jimmy, I'm going to actually start with you. You are a Fallout fan. What did you love about this show?
Uh, hey, look, honestly, if I had lived through Fallout, I could give it more thumbs up because I would have grown some extra arms by now. Look, the show is just like, I'm a fan of the video games, and you're right. An adaptation does not, in my opinion, it doesn't have to follow the video game. I mean, the only real good adaptation I can think of that followed really, really closely would have been the the fungus one, the Last of Us. Last of Us was really good. You know, this one, it is fun, it's funny, it's got really good action. Okay, it's really well scripted, really well directed, and it's got a cast that honestly it works. They didn't just. Here's the thing about the Rings of Power. Half the people in the Rings of Power, I don't know if they actually were actors. Not sure. This movie or this series, they went all out. I mean, Walton Goggins, I mean, what can you say? I can't think of a better person to have played
Play
the
the
Ghoul.
goal. Yeah.
I mean, he's so good.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just to pick up on what you're saying there with it's not that I doubt that all the people in the Rings of Power are actors, but I do think a lot of them are miscast. When you talk about Celebrimbor, who is supposed to be an ethereal elf who doesn't age, and you get a guy who looks 54 and then put him in a costume that looks like my grandmother's nightgown.
Well, and Rings of Power, that's a whole nother can of worms
Right.
in itself.
But they everybody looked like they belonged in Fallout. And not only that, but somebody said to me that I was afraid that Lucy and Maximus were going to be dollar store versions of Ray and Finn, and it turned out that Ray and Finn were dollar store versions of Lucy and Maximus.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's really on point. I love it. Yeah, any complaints that I may have heard on the internet from the Fallout fanboys about this, that, and the other, honestly, any changes to the lore and everything were so minute. They were actually very faithful to so much from the video game. I actually re-downloaded. I've been playing Fallout 4 for years, and I just re-downloaded Fallout 76 just because I wanted to play even more Fallout after watching the series.
I downloaded Fallout 3, started that over.
I bought New Vegas for $2.50 on a Steam sale, and I bought Fallout 4, but I did buy Fallout 4 not for Fallout 4. I bought it for Fallout London, which is a game size mod which turns Fallout 4 into London, fully voiced. I can't wait to play it. It was supposed to come out next week, but for the first time in like 2 years, Bethesda's like, we're going to drop a brand new mod for Fallout 4 2 days after Fallout London was supposed to drop. So now the guys from Fallout London are like, all right, we're going to have to wait till to see this new mod. We're going to have to make sure it doesn't mess up our entire mod that we've been working on for 3 frigging years.
Well,
so yeah,
Bethesda is really taking the series like I think they were kind of waiting. I think they knew it was going to be good. I think they were kind of waiting to see like how good is it actually going to be. And now like, oh my God, let's do it. Everything. They're just throwing everything at it.
I also
stuff they've been holding on to.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about like the greatest promo for your video games, and like you should go back and play when there's not too much out, especially when there have been some disasters in the video game world. I mean, I think the only kind of good game that has come out so far is Rise of the Ronin. But I mean, Ubisoft shit the bed with Skull and Bones, and no one's playing that. And so it's like, yeah, now it's time to go back and do some Fallout. But
the other thing I think they did too is look. I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on for a moment. Okay, I'm going to put my conspiracy theorist hat on for a moment. Everybody in the Fallout community has long believed that Todd has hated the head of Bethesda, has hated Fallout New Vegas, because everybody widely believes that Fallout New Vegas is the best Fallout game, and it was made by Obsidian, not Bethesda. Okay, so a lot of people out there were thinking like, what the fuck? Like this is the one big complaint of the show, right? Was that the show seems to contradict the timeline of New Vegas, because the show says that Shady Shores was bombed to bits 4 years before the events of New Vegas happens. And they have since come out and they were like, well, the timeline was a little malleable. We kind of messed that up. But no, New Vegas was not retconned. Everything that happened in New Vegas happened. And so even though the years don't add up, and I really think what happened was that the show was a litmus test to see if they could get rid of New Vegas and do a New Vegas storyline in season 2, because that's obviously where it's going based on the last shots of the show.
Sure.
But then the show hit, and all the New Vegas fans lost their shit. And now they're all going, well, I guess we can't retcon New Vegas. So nope, everything happened. It's the way it is. We'll write our story accordingly.
If that were true, you can't really blame Bethesda because New Vegas is completely unlike all the rest of the Fallout games. It's a revenge story. It doesn't follow the same arc as all the rest of them.
Yeah.
It doesn't
mean it's not a good game.
It doesn't, but it doesn't follow the same storyline, but it does follow the same gameplay, the same RPGs. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You can still have different stories within that world in different. And that's the point of, video games and little what I like to call the side quest versions. It's like the Uncharted series where you put Chloe and the other girl together in a game or whatever, even though it's not as good and you don't have Nathan Drake there. So what? Okay. And I would love to see them, you touched on The Last of Us. I'd love to, they've already talked about that. Maybe they need to actually have a prequel and show what Joel was doing before he met Ellie and all these adventures, how he met Tess and all that. So, you can do different things and it doesn't take away from how good New Vegas is compared to the rest of the games. Okay. The problem with the show is, as you said, if it is truly a litmus test, it's okay. Now you know how hardcore fans are going to react. You know what you have to do now. The ultimate test is, are you going to be faithful to the story that has already been established? Then you're going to give something for the fans, or are you going to be like, yeah, fuck the fans and we're going to do what we want and blah, blah, blah. I
think a company, a film studio is finally just happy that they found a fan base that's really rabid, that is not going to just eat them alive like the Star Wars fan base does every single thing that comes out of.
It's funny that you should have been through podcasts with us for the last couple of years, because it's as much as we complain about stuff, and we're not going to rehash old debates or anything like that. It is a very, I know it's okay, Brenda, it's okay. I do want to say this. Here's my test to know that Brendan's paying attention. The Last Jedi is the greatest movie in the world.
Hey, my daughter is named Rey. Okay,
why would you do that to her?
You and our assistant editor, Allison, would absolutely get along. Her oldest son is named Hayden. Her oldest daughter is named Sydney from Alias. Her second oldest daughter is Alora Dannon from Willow. I
would name my son Hayden.
Yeah.
I would not name any of my children any of the characters from the sequel trilogy. I'm just not that cruel.
A good name for a girl.
Well, but again, my point is, if you're not going to be faithful and you're just doing it to piss off the fans and you're going to complain, then that's the wrong thing to do. Okay. So this is your greatest test. All right. And if you're going to be that guy, then you can go, you're going to end up in the special hell with the writers of Rings of Power, who just said, fuck it, we're going to do what we want with the $1 billion that we got from Amazon, and damn the fans, and we don't know how to tell a story, blah, blah, blah.
Well, but I'm sorry. The onus, you're right. The onus is on them, but none of them ever go into it saying, hey, we want to piss off the fans. They always want to go into it, hey, we want to make as much money as possible. And and this is where they make the mistake. They said, if this part of the fan base doesn't like it, screw them. We're happy with the other 90%. And then they never realize, oh yeah, that small part is just the vocal minority of all the rest of them. And that's the mistake.
That's the shining example of one of the greatest quotes about writers. Molière said it best. Writing is like prostitution. At first you do it for yourself, then you do it for a few friends and family, but eventually you'll do it for money. So, I have said this from the very beginning. If you want to do your own thing, you want complete creative control, okay, create your own sandbox, build the lore. Don't play in somebody else's sandbox and take a shit in it. All right. And I get to say that because I don't want to write in somebody else's fantasy world. I built my own fantasy world that has familiar themes, common stories that you see in everything. But I'm like, this is me playing in the sandbox I created. I get to do what I want. Okay. And I'm not out there to, piss off the fans. Okay. But hopefully I don't have a Kathy Bates-esque like fan that doesn't like something and will kidnap me, break my ankles, and try to make me rewrite the story. Although I'm not opposed to that to the writers of Rings of Power. But
if you're going to talk about being in misery, then we can start talking about, the Irishman again. Okay. No. Let's stick with Fallout. Hey, I tell you what, Ella Purnell, okay? The
right.
main actress. I have not seen her in a whole lot. I was looking through her like repertoire, and she's done a few things here and there. The biggest thing that I've seen that she's done is Arcane and Army of the Dead.
Yeah, she was
But
good.
You know what? I cannot. Now that I've watched her in this series, I can't imagine a different actress for this part.
No, I agree with that.
I liked her naivete.
That's yes, absolutely.
Because it would have been so easy for the writers to fall into the Rey trap and just make her good at everything all the time. And
wow, that's like the ultimate test for writers. Like, don't Rey your character.
Seriously, and don't Mary Sue your character. The character has to have a hero's journey, and she does. She is naive. She is gullible. She is overly trusting, and it bites her in the ass on numerous occasions.
Yeah.
But because of the skills that they actually show at the beginning of the movie, her fighting, her shooting, she's able to just barely survive long enough to learn how not to get completely destroyed in this new world that she's living in.
Right.
And she slowly grows, but she has these little moments where she's like, okay, I'm learning to be a little bit more ruthless and a little bit more protective of myself, but I'm not going to lose the core of who I am. So even though the ghoul set me up and the ghoul turned me in for a bounty and I turned it around on him, I'm still going to give him the medicine he needs, which, by the way, connects him a little bit back to his humanity.
Yeah.
Okay. This is character development, people. And it's a beautiful thing to see.
The flashback scenes were great.
Fantastic. But God, Walton Goggins is so good. Anyway, sorry.
Walton Goggins is really good. You're right. And the flashback scenes, fantastic.
Whatever he's paid, it's not enough. I'm going to throw that out there.
You know what's funny? Who was it? Vanity Fair this past week that did an article about Walter Goggins' journey to Hollywood. Like, he went to LA with $300, and so been going back and watching old 1994 movies for the podcast that we created. I forgot that he was in The Next Karate Kid. He played one of the soldier students or whatever, and had a few speaking lines. And tries to take on
really?
Yeah, he was in that movie. I was like, holy shit, that's a very young Walter Goggins.
You're talking about the third with the girl?
No, the fourth.
Not the fourth with Hilary Swank.
The fourth, okay.
Came out in 94. That's a 94 movie. Yeah. I had to throw shade on social media this week or throw a little controversy. Like, it's not as bad of a film as most people think. It's campy and stupid, but it is actually kind of fun. And Hilary Swank is kind of that rebellious, cute, girl next door that you just want to get with. So,
but look, between The Shield, Sons of Anarchy, Justified, and now Fallout. I mean,
okay.
Well, don't forget he was in Django Unchained.
The Hateful Eight.
I mean,
okay. I want to say this about Sons of Anarchy. Okay. He has the greatest, not really a cameo, but like small part in the later seasons as the transsexual Wanda.
Yeah.
That Trig Kim Coates has a thing for. And when that show ends and they sort of get together, here's a story about how that came about. Because Kurt Sutter, who wrote The Shield,
Right.
he had kind of Walter Goggins wanted to be on Sons of Anarchy, and Kurt Sutter wouldn't let him do it because he was too recognizable from The Shield. So the bet was you could come on that show if somehow you could not be as recognizable. Transsexual Wanda. And nailed it.
Which, by the way, I saw a joke short on YouTube the other day, and it might have been the funniest thing ever because the guy was just making fun of everybody at one time. And he goes, I don't hate trans women because they're trans. I hate them because they're women. I'm a trans inclusatory radical misogynist.
Okay.
I was like, that is odd because you're literally making fun of everybody on both sides all at the same time.
As Dave Chappelle would probably say, you're basically taking a shot at everybody in the alphabet police. So, yeah. And don't get us wrong. I mean, we are very inclusive at that nerd show, and while we kid and stuff like that. It's great to see, these characters or whatever, but Walter Goggins knocked it out of the park in that role. And I love anything that RuPaul does. I am not ashamed to admit that I will every once in a while watch RuPaul's Drag Race because that's kind of cutthroat. I'm always expecting like a Tanya Harding like moment, and there's like a kneecap going behind the scenes. But anyway, that's a whole nother story.
You're adding men's competitive sports to the cutthroat way in which women deal with each other.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's getting kneecapped.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Okay. But anyway,
I do have one negative thing to say about Fallout.
Okay.
All right. The guy who played Maximus, good. Hey, good guy, good actor, good performance. However, I do feel that he was a kind of a middling character in the whole, and he could have been played by almost any, like 20-something black guy.
If there is a weak link in the Fallout chain, it is the Brotherhood of Steel storyline. I just thought it was very uneven, and I don't blame the actor on this. I blame the script. He had wild swings of what he was doing and why he was doing it, and without any real explanation on how he got there.
It was a little unhinged.
Yeah, it was just it was like at one point you think he's a really principled guy and he's doing it, and then at another point he's completely opportunistic, and then he's completely principled again, and then he's completely opportunistic, and it's just like, okay, dude, like you might be past sociopath and onto psychopath here. Like, I don't know where you're going with this character. You're supposed to be a hero or a villain. I'm not sure.
My biggest problem is you didn't do enough backstory to establish them in 8 episodes. I'm not disagreeing with you about how with the character. It certainly could have done better, but I think a lot of it has to go into more of the backstory because you have.
Yeah, all we get for his backstory is that he was a little kid that survived the Shady Shores bombing, and then he got rescued by the Brotherhood of Steel, and that was it. And versus what Ella Purnell or Walton Goggins got.
My biggest complaint about the entire season was you had to spend too much time world building, but then there wasn't enough with the Brotherhood of Steel. Okay, like you could have literally put one more episode in there that's dedicated mostly to them, and that show would have still been fine. And I'm sure we'll
miss the days when we didn't have limited runs of TV shows when we could get 20 25 shows.
See,
and it's 30
see,
shows
Marcus
in
and I are in agreement on this. We don't like 22, 23 episode seasons. There's a whole crap ton of filler that you don't need there. But we also agree that 8 or 9 is too short. We think 13 is that kind of magic number where you get enough for character development.
I'll give you the perfect example. Segue back to the CW a little bit here. Smallville. If you boil down, if you do the 13 best episodes of each season, okay, really you're only getting, compared to 22 episodes or whatever, you're only really getting 5 or 6 seasons, really good seasons. There's so much Dawson's Creek bullshit filler that's unnecessary, okay, that, like, for example, and I made jokes about this when Alice and Matt got arrested and finally indicted for but there's an episode in like season 5 where Lana, Chloe, and Lois all get possessed by witches and they seduce Clark in the bar. And I'm like, oh, so this is a promo video for Nexum. Is he about to get branded? The entire episode is stupid. There is no reason. I'm like, the only reason that episode was run is like, we're going to take 3 hot actresses and we're going to put them in skimpy outfits seducing somebody in a bar. That's the only point to this episode. I'm not against it. I just want you to be honest about why you wrote it.
Well,
hear me out.
Like,
hear me out.
Go ahead.
The longer full runs, though, in my opinion, give us more content in the future. And I know it sounds like counterintuitive, like what more episodes means more content. Here's the problem with the shorter runs, the 9, 10, runs. Then it's like 2 years before you get another season,
I'm gonna counteract you on that. I am going to counteract you on that. And it's not 2 seasons before you. It's only 2 seasons. It's only 2 years post COVID, because the whole industry has shifted post COVID. Before that, we had Marcus and I watch a lot of European television, and they have been doing 10 to 13 episode seasons for decades. Yeah. And they can crank out 10 to 13 episodes. And just on the whole of it, just think about it. 10 to 13 episodes is easier to produce than 23 episodes. It does not take 2 years to do it.
Because one of the best shows ever was Sherlock, and they were like 5 years between seasons.
But they were 5 years between seasons because the 2 actors became highly, highly sought after in the larger world, and it was harder for the BBC to schedule them. That had nothing to do with getting them, actually producing episodes.
I don't know, maybe if they had made more episodes, they would have stayed busier with that show.
But I don't think so, because there was no way the BBC could pay them the amount that the movies were paying those actors.
How about One Punch Man? There's for that show like 5 years. 10 years.
Let me say this. FX I always feel like has gotten it right. 10 to 13 episodes. You got 13 episodes with each season of Justified, Sons of Anarchy, Mayans,
The Shield, Dennis Leary's Rescue Me.
Good one, but one of our all-time favorites, The Americans. Very rated.
All of these 10 to 13 episodes, and all of them every year like clockwork.
Right.
But like you said, Rescue Me was 22 years ago.
I know.
Okay, but that was the one that started kind of the FX train.
Right. But for every story, every show that for 13 episodes or that, you get 22 or whatever that really explore, I will kind of give you that with like the first 5 seasons of Arrow, where they really had a true 5-year plan, but they had to keep going because, it was so popular. There's Lost, where it was obvious you didn't really have a plan post a couple of seasons because they didn't think it was going to last. And then you're just writing shit to the point where your last season is, you know what? We're going to do sliding doors. And
if you're doing Babylon 5 and Babylon 5 has a defined 5-year arc, I'm fine with 22 episode seasons.
Yeah.
You know what? You're right. And I do agree with you that I think these 9, 10 episode seasons or just literally the studio saying, let's see if it works. And that's probably the reason why it always takes like 2 years to get off
But it
because
also,
no one has faith in anything anymore in
but
any of these vehicles.
it also depends on the show. Like Game of Thrones is perfect for 10 episodes, the first 6 seasons. I'm not going to count the last 2 where they crammed everything into finally ended. But the build up and all that, because it took 10 episodes to tell a book. And then the Clash of Kings had to be told over 2 seasons. So, The Last of Us, I thought did really good doing 9 episodes. But I also complained that for someone who loves the game and has played it multiple times, the hospital scene in that final episode is so not really dramatic. It's 5 minutes of like slow, it's like Zack Snyder slow mo bullshit where it's too easy to get through the hospital. And if you play it, it's like it takes you multiple times to rescue her. And I'm like, you could have given me another whole episode to make that whole ending more intense. But at the same time, you're going to have to tell The Last of Us Part 2 over 2 seasons. Especially with dual storylines. So
I'll give you a great example.
I'm just greedy.
I'll give you a great example. One of Marcus and I's favorite shows on Amazon Prime, Bosch. Season 1, I think they 12 episode seasons on Bosch. Season 1 dropped 2014. Season 2 dropped 2016. Season 3 dropped 2017. Season 3 dropped 2018. Season 5 2019, season 6, 2020, season 7, 2021. And since 2021, even with COVID, we've had 2 seasons of Bosch Legacy and a 3rd season coming. So, it can be done. It's just COVID threw a wrench into it. And then also the quote unquote Netflix model where you have to absolutely hit crazy high numbers in order to get past 2 or 3 seasons, because Netflix does this, right? Netflix is like, if you're good, you get 2 seasons. If you're great, you get 3 seasons. And if you're amazing, you get 4 or 5 seasons. But if you're just middling, you're done at 1. They just, all right, cool. We got some views out of you, but that's it. We're not spending any more money on you.
So I'm going to segue out of this because this can be a whole nother show unto itself. And we've got 2 other things that we've got to talk about. But I want to end it on Fallout. Brendan and I were talking about in our chat. I actually gave the show an 8 because, again, being pleasantly surprised. And although I complained about too much world building, I understood why they had to do it for people who have never played the game. Brendan, what did you end up giving it?
Same grade as you. You and I, for once, are in agreement, lockstep. We gave it an 8 out of 10.
That's right. That's right. Jimmy, out of 1 through 10, how would you grade this?
Honestly, 8 is probably about right. I would almost give it a 9. I probably would give it a 9. The only reason I wouldn't give it a 9 is because Michael Rappaport was not in there long enough as Titus. I love him as an actor so much, and he's so good as just the asshole, Titus, that I kind of wish that he was in there more.
Speaking of COVID and the worst part of it, Michael Rappaport had a documentary. He did a documentary on the 50th anniversary of hip hop late last year. He was coming to Dallas for a screening, and we were set to do sit-down interviews with him. And I'm like, that's one of those people that I want to interview. I just want to talk about various things, and then him and his wife got COVID. And then he went into filming other, his film schedule, and he never came back. I'm like, damn it, I want to drink and talk with Michael Rappaport. I love when he goes off
get
on
drunk with him. He could talk to other people. I would just like to get drunk around him.
I know. He's just hilarious, and I love the videos when people have like tried to kind of trap him about, like his ideal woman or whatever. And he is very much, to this day in love with his wife and dotes on her. And just, he's just one of my favorites, and obviously very cool. So still very disappointed that never happened, but one day. All right. We got to segue into it. As you can tell, we do rate Fallout about the same. We can't wait for season 2, but in the meantime, I think we've all gone back to start playing some of the games. Anyway, Shogun on FX. And if you want to talk about great storytelling, great acting, and doing it right over 10 episodes, you can call this a remake of the original. The other one was done like almost over 40 years ago. I honestly don't remember that show personally, because I know Brendan. We were
kids. I watched it a few times with my parents as a kid, but I do remember it. The Richard Chamberlain one. Yeah.
Yeah. But this one
not nearly as good as this one.
No.
This is something else. Hiroyuki Sanada, Hiro-san.
Yeah.
All I gotta say. And by the way, you're Scorpion.
Yeah.
Come on.
You are a national treasure in Japan. Anything?
Hell, he's a national treasure here. I don't care.
No,
I don't care if he's not American. He's a national treasure here. He's phenomenal.
I feel like the only. I was actually thinking about this. For all the complaints that we have about Disney, if they ever pull their head out of their ass and we actually go to the Old Republic, if he is not a Jedi, fuck you.
Honestly, yes, okay, I'd be all in for him as a Jedi, but can you, we all agree, right? A good protagonist needs a great antagonist. Can you imagine him as a Sith?
Yeah, I know.
Anyway,
I do not disagree.
Hard to
better than the sisters we got.
Yeah, like this man. This man, I want him to do everything. Like everybody wants him to do it. Everybody wants him to do a Shogun season 2, and I'm like, no. First of all, he doesn't want to. Like they did the book. They did the book exactly as a book should be done. Probably the best book adaptation since Lord of the Rings. Can we agree?
Yeah. I would go.
All right. Best book adaptation since Lord of the Rings. We stopped on the ending of the book. Let's not make shit up. Let's just have Hiroyuki be every amazing Japanese historical character ever. Okay.
Well, I agree with you that the fan of me wants to see more. I want to see more adventures. I want to see more of the Englishman's time in Japan before he finally gets to go home. But it's such a beautiful story that it's one of those that you don't have to end with a bloody battle, because the politics, the secrecy, the mystery all ends perfectly. Like you all arrive at this certain point of what was meant to happen. Like he played the perfect chess game to get to where he was going. And his kind of final acts of violence or whatever, former friend, Ito or whatever, that he allows him to commit seppuku, and he honors him by being his second. He gives him the honorable death, even though he was betrayed. It's like, it's a beautiful story. Okay.
And there are so many in Japan's history. And I just want Hiroyuki to be all of them. I want him to be the West's looking glass into Japan's history. Like just pick a freaking amazing character in Japanese history. We have the actor to play him. Also, if he wants to be a Jedi, let's do it. I'm all for it.
Yeah,
if he wants to be a Star Trek captain, I'm all for it. If he wants to be in the Babylon 5 reboot, let's do it. Like the man is awesome. He can act his ass off. And I mean, look, like he's in John Wick. He's in The Last Samurai. He's
47 with Keanu Reeves, which is a great movie.
Very highly underrated. The guy is everywhere, and he's awesome, and I love him. And you can tell there's so much passion behind what he does, not only for his craft, but for the material that he is dealing with, regardless of what it is. I mean, the man treats Mortal Kombat like Shakespeare. God bless you, sir.
Well, speaking of Mortal Kombat, I also like, there is another great actor in this show, Asano. I don't know how to pronounce his first name. Tadano Bu Asano. Great actor. He's also in Mortal Kombat. And he was in this Netflix movie, Kate. He is like an anime character brought to life. He's the smirky, the smirky Japanese guy that you want in every side role of an anime. And I've only watched the first 3 episodes of Shogun, and he's one of my favorite characters.
I got to give it to Cosmo Jarvis, who played Blackthorn. Amazing. He was crass. He was honorable. I mean, just everything about him and how he portrayed that character as someone who wanted to spit on everything for, especially the Catholics, who by the end of it, through all the tragedy and stuff like that, got it. And he understood the beauty and the honor. And I love the very end. And I'm sorry, Jimmy, we're going to spoil this. I love the very last scene where they're pulling the wrecked ship out of the water. Everybody, even the husband of
Wintaro,
Mariko, who is helping. But when he looks at, I'm already Torunga. He finally realizes, oh, you're the one who kind of burned my ship. I kind of get everything that you are doing. I understand my role in everything here, and it's sacred. What's funny is if you go back and watch The Last Samurai, when Tom Cruise's character returns back to the village, he has found peace after war and all that, and they have accepted him. It's a great transformation of his character. I feel like in a lot of ways, that's kind of a great ode to the Blackthorn character from the Shogun book, who goes through this transformation and realizes that his view on life may have been wrong, that there is, beauty in death. There is beauty in tragedy. Anyway, it's just well done. So
my unsung hero from the show, though, is the guy who played Toda Hiromatsu, who was he was the elderly statesman who was one of Lord Toranaga's his closest advisor, and he was played by an actor named Tokuma Nishioka. And if that guy was ever hired in a proper Tekken movie to play Kazuya Mishima, that would be awesome, to play like the patriarch of Tekken. Like I'm seriously, he looks like an old Kazuya. It's like Kazuya. It's like Kazuya was based on him when he was younger. Yeah. And yeah, that guy's awesome, and I would love to see him in other things. And I hope I get the chance.
Well, the other one, and if she doesn't win an Emmy for this, Anna Sawa, I'm sure if we're mispronouncing her last name. We saw her in Monarch as the daughter. Wow, did she not?
That's a transformation because, yeah, like she goes from being a petulant teenager to being a mature, in charge woman.
Yeah.
And you know, wow, like yeah, she does a phenomenal. Like, don't get me wrong, I didn't hate Monarch. I actually thought it was quite enjoyable. If I had to grade it, if I had to grade it, probably a solid 7. But in this, she takes it to a completely another level.
Oh no, she's a wonderful actress, and
yeah,
I mean, it absolutely shows, her range in this. I just feel like that they were able to do so much more with Shogun. I like Richard Chamberlain. I still think to date he makes the best version of the Bourne Identity because it was actually because it was the actual book. It was a Cold War espionage novel. It wasn't the Matt Damon over the top action, whatever, where we just borrowed the name of the book. It's like, we're going to do the character's name and there's going to be Treadstone and blah, blah, blah. But other than that.
And we're going to have Moby doing music. Yay.
Oh, right. But he is kind of an over the top actor. Great, in his day. And he was here at the USA Film Festival a few years ago. I had a couple minutes with him and he was really, really nice. Still love him in the Thornbirds. But it's like, I would never go back and watch you in Shogun after this.
It's got nothing to do with him. It's just the level of production, the care and the insight, because, it was produced here in the United States, but, thanks to Sonato-san, he brought over all of these amazing Japanese actors and Japanese production people and Japanese costume people. And so there was a level of authenticity to it that just couldn't be duplicated by early 1980s American television. And that's nothing against what they tried to do in the 80s. It's just they didn't have access to what this modern version had access to. And they did such a sublime job that it's instantly a classic.
If you go back and watch, miniseries back from the late 70s, through the 80s, where you had great drama. We didn't shy away from Roots, the original Roots. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Well, as Bill Burr said, are they still beating them? It's been a week. All right, I get it. I'm guilty. Leave me alone.
I know, right? The Winds of War and War and Remembrance. I mean, for God's sake, I remember being in grade school and they're like talking about, okay, we want you to watch. I mean, a national TV, a little bit of nudity, and they're marching Jews off into the gas chamber. We can't put that on regular TV anymore. Okay. You had great miniseries where you can do. Just Shogun was not the best one. But 40 years later, you've nailed it. And this should be watched. I mean, it's beautiful. It's poetic. Yeah.
The fact that they trusted the audience enough to not pull their punches and do the entire thing in actual Japanese.
Amen.
Instead of just like placating to the American audience and then like, we'll start in Japanese, but then everything will be in English. And then, the fact that
the only thing that was in English was the Portuguese interactions between her and the Englishman. And 100%, bro. Because one of my favorite movies, and Marcus will tell you this, one of my favorite movies, and I won't even say the title in English because it doesn't deserve it, is Le Pacte de Loup. Okay, and if you don't know what that is, okay, I will say it in English just in case you don't know what it is, but it's The Brotherhood of the Wolf. Okay, Brotherhood of the Wolf is an amazing French action movie that came out around 2001, and it stars Mark Dacascos in a supporting role, and the rest are French actors. And I implore you to never watch it in English because the English dub is terrible. Just watch it in French with subtitles. Now, I took a lot of French in high school and grade school, so I actually get to the point where I don't even have to watch it with subtitles. I just know what's going on because I can pick up enough of the French to get it. But it is sublime. What the cinematography is amazing. It's just beautiful. And look, don't be afraid of language, people. Just don't be afraid of language. Language is amazing. Learn something new. Stretch your boundaries. Watch the Japanese. It wants to love you.
And here's the deal. And if you want, as a filmmaker, in my opinion, if you absolutely want to do your foreign film in English, there are ways to do it that don't suck. I mean, I hate to bring this movie up, but it's actually one of my, like favorite, guilty pleasures is the 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas.
I like the 13th Warrior.
Where they
don't apologize for bringing that up. That movie is horribly underrated.
And there's an entire scene or sequence
around the campfire.
Around the campfire where he learns the language, and they do it in a storied form, and it's actually good.
The best line. The best line of that entire movie when he gets the smith to whittle down the sword properly, and Tony Curran,
gave him a sword and then makes a knife.
When
you die, can I give that to me, daughter?
That's good.
My favorite line, though, but that's a great line. It is an amazing line. But my favorite line in that movie is this: "No, I'm sorry, my friend, I cannot. My religion forbids me to drink the fermentation of fruit or grain." And he just starts laughing, and he's like, "Why are you laughing?" He goes, "Honey, it's made from honey." And he just grabs it and downs it. So for all my Muslim friends out there, mead is your loophole. Okay.
That movie is full of great lines, great, Scandinavian actors, great.
100%.
Yeah, no.
There are two great action movies that Antonio Banderas did. Obviously, the first one is Desperado, great movie, and then there's the 13th Warrior.
Yeah.
And I want to say that there was a great actor role.
Come on now, I'm a dad of three girls.
All right, whatever.
So I'd like to point out. I'd like to point out real quick about the 13th Warrior. That was directed by John McTiernan, who was coming off of The Hunt for Red October and Die Hard. If he wasn't such an this guy was on a run of freaking amazing movies like nobody has ever seen. But he got himself in so much trouble that Hollywood blacklisted him, and we've never seen him since. And it's like, man, seeing the crap that's coming out now, John McTiernan, you're our only help. Come and save us.
Right. Well, anyway,
blacklisted in the 90s. It had to be really, really bad.
It was. He was. I look. I'm not going to get into it on here. Look it up. You can see it's bad. Like he's a jackass. He's 100% a jackass, but he makes amazing movies.
Kind of like John Milius. Although I never consider John Milius a jackass. He just knows how to tell a really great story and doesn't cater to fucking Hollywood. So, well, anyway, I'll say it. Shogun was a perfect 10. I don't know if you can get any better telling that story with that cast. I don't know. If you try to redo it, you're only going to make it worse. It is absolute perfection. That's how I feel about it. And again, I loved the ending. The fan of me wants more, but don't ruin it by trying to add more to that story. You told a perfect story with a great cast.
Jimmy, what say you? What's your grade for it?
Well, I've only watched 3 episodes.
So those first 3 episodes, grade those.
I would say every episode is a 10 of 10 of the ones I've seen. So if the rest of it averages out, it'll average out to a 10 of 10.
Yeah. So here's my thing. Jimmy, I and Marcus will tell you this. I am loath to give anything a 10. Okay.
You just can't do it. Just admit it.
No, I have done it in the past a couple of times, rarely, twice, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And
this will be the third because I could do something and just be a jackass and try and cop out and say it's a 9.5 or a 9.75. But that would just be a jackass cop out because I'm a tough grader. And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be intellectually honest. This was a 10. If you grade anything less than a 10, you're full of shit and you're engagement farming and you're trolling because everybody knows it's a 10. So yeah.
But I as a critic, I have a problem with critics because again, I don't think they grade things. They try to grade everything the same way, and sometimes they have to be overly critical and just can't say something is a perfect 10. And I'll get more into that because we segue into Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2, but I struggled with that with Blade Runner 2049. I never thought they should do another story. Don't ruin perfection. I was the same way with Top Gun Maverick. I didn't give Top Gun Maverick a perfect 10, by the way. I was just pleasantly surprised by how good it was and how much they knocked it out.
We both gave that a 9, correct?
Yeah. And I wrote like a 3,000-word editorial on, why it really worked. And I think you and I talked about it the first time we talked on Zoom. I mean, that the perfect moment in that slows the movie down is the Val Kilmer scene. And it's emotional. And if you don't fucking cry,
Dude, that scene.
Yeah. I just love the humor. When he finally struggles to speak, who's the better pilot? This is a nice moment. Let's not ruin it. And they hug, and then you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I gave Blade Runner 2049 a perfect 10. The pacing was good. The color, everything was so damn good about that movie and the way they connected to the first film. Okay. I admit that I had tears in my eyes. When you are basically setting up and you actually think Ryan Gosling is the long lost child, and then you realize, oh shit, he really isn't. And then you finally figure out that the girl in the glass case is. And
I'm glad I wasn't in that podcast. I would have pissed you off.
You can hate that movie all you want, but
no, I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
I'm sorry.
There are things that bother me about it.
And that's fine. I thought it was a beautiful movie, and I wrote it that way, and I struggled with it, and I was just like, fuck it. I can watch this movie over and over, and that very last scene where Harrison Ford walks in, there's no dialogue, and he just puts his hand on the glass, and she turns around, and he sees his daughter for the first time. And it's like, awesome. I can be critical. But at the same time, I don't think people should be afraid to just say, look, this is a great movie for a number of reasons. There's no reason to be overly critical. And I think Shogun is a great example of it is what it is. Don't shy away from it. Okay.
Quick throwback to Fallout. How do you think it's going to go when the ghoul finds his wife? I'll tell you how I think it's going to go. You're not going to shoot. You're not going to shoot me. We're married. Consider this a divorce.
Hey, the music worked really well in that series. We didn't touch on the music, but I will say I love how it perfectly plays.
Well, but the music is straight from the games. I mean,
it's that retro 50s vibe.
I know.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, and you say the same thing about The Last of Us, having the same score, having this. And the one thing I really liked about the series, about the perfect music, in the game, when they're driving off, they're playing old Hank Williams. But the Linda Ronstadt song, Jesus Christ, after Frank and I'm drawing a blank, but after the whole love story, where they basically commit suicide together and everything, that was absolutely a perfect way to end that episode. So music says a lot. All right. Well, Jimmy, we would definitely want to know your thoughts once you finish Shogun. So we've gushed, we've talked, but now we got to do a little complaining. And we're not going to take 30 minutes to do this. We can talk more about it, but I do encourage you to go read Jimmy's article about why Zack Snyder is a terrible storyteller. So I'm going to ask this. Brendan, did you watch Rebel Moon Part 2, or you just say, fuck it, I'm not going to do it? Fuck it, I'm not going to do it. It's a perfectly acceptable answer.
Yeah. I watched the first one. Wasn't that enough? Other than that, I'm just going to let Jimmy cook.
Yeah, no.
Hashtag let Jimmy cook.
The first one is enough. So, all right, before I get into complaining, okay, I want to say a couple of good things that I did find out that
You're
I did
a
not
better
put
man than
but,
I.
no, they're minor things. One is Jenna Malone is in the movie, and I didn't even realize it till I was looking through the cast credits.
Yeah.
If you don't know who Jenna Malone is, she was the younger sister in Sucker Punch, another
Yeah.
Snyder film, which is one of my guilty cult favorites. It's a bad movie, but it's okay.
It's okay to like that. See, that's one thing we're a proponent of here at That Nerd Show. It is okay to like bad movies. I grew up on Chuck Norris movies in the 80s. They are all objectively terrible, but
Hey,
they're a
Octagon,
lot of
what are you gonna
fun.
do?
Lone Wolf McQuade is a fun Texas Ranger type of story.
And
Yeah.
if you don't,
A karate master and a kung fu master. But it's terrible.
so if you didn't know who she was in the film, I wouldn't blame you. She was the spider. She was literally the spider in the first Rebel Moon 1. And so that really caught me off guard. But Nemesis is going to be my favorite. Is going to be the only character I actually like out of the two movies. And I really wish they would just take her and make a movie about her. Because here's the deal. If you read the article, I kind of go into how one, he basically wrote this movie in college and he hasn't written on it since. He didn't improve it. He hasn't learned anything. Okay. He got the big studio budget. It is a film student film, okay, with a big budget. And because he misses so many of the basics, right?
I got a question. We talked about this before the podcast. So here, and I thought about this today. Would you agree that Bryan Singer's Superman Returns is basically a glorified fan film?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean anybody who writes an entire Superman script and doesn't have Superman throw a punch.
Glorified fan film. Okay.
Yeah.
You got a $200 million budget to make a glorified fan film. Is it worse to do a glorified fan film or to basically take your student idea, never edit on it, never do anything, try to make it a Star Wars movie with every other goddamn theme that you've seen from movies and make it with a big Hollywood budget?
It depends. Is one more watchable than the other? I mean, that's the problem. It's so in Rebel, and spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't.
Oh, we're going to spoil it. We're going to
Is-
save some people from having to watch it.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing. You almost, and this is my problem with it. It's that you have part one. There's just part of the story that needs to be told in part one, and the other part of that story that needed to be told in part one is in part two. Like the getting to know. Okay, he steals the trope of the good guy finding a bunch of misfit heroes to help him fight the big bad. Okay. Overused narrative all over the place. It's basically Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven, Avengers, whatever. It's done all
Which,
over.
by the way, we've known for about 15 years he's wanted to do a Seven Samurai Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah,
by the way,
sure.
that concept, especially set in the Rise of the Empire era, is a fantastic concept. And all you have to do is literally copy Kurosawa with lightsabers. And if you can't do that, you're an incompetent filmmaker.
And you sort of did that with this film because you didn't get to make a Star Wars movie.
Right. So, but the problem is, if he was going to copy it, he should have copied it a little bit more faithfully.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's my point. That's what I'm saying. 100% agree with you.
There's a whole scene in Rebel Moon 2 where they're all having this heart-to-heart session about telling all of their sad, tragic backstories.
And they're all the same.
And they're all the same.
Literally the same backstory.
That should have happened in the first movie. First off, when they were actually meeting each other, you don't become a good team after you've already gone through some shit.
By the way,
a big battle.
if you do that before you get betrayed by the pilot, it makes you're immediately even more connected and root for the heroes.
Yeah, there's some stakes.
And it also makes that betrayal even that more gut wrenching because there is some type of connection there. But because you didn't do that, everybody's like, we kind of all saw that coming.
Well, you do that, and then he throws in his backstory, and then you kind of learn it's fake. makes it more
Right.
Sure, there's so many opportunities there, right? And then, of course, some of the characters who like the big battle, which ends up being completely worthless once you get into the second movie. But the big battle at the end of the first movie, where one of the quote unquote important characters just dies by throwing himself against a starship that's firing laser cannons, and it's a battleship. Somehow, this dude with a spear who strangely enough talks like a Shakespearean actor for like no reason whatsoever. Just the weirdest
I'm not saying Ray Stevens wouldn't make a great Othello.
whatever. But he launches himself with not even a spear. It's like it's a hunk of shelving.
Yeah.
At the and dies while killing a gunner. But the thing is, it's like you don't even feel bad about it. It's like it's supposed to be dramatic. You don't even know this guy. You barely met him.
Look,
And then, go ahead.
my biggest complaint is like, I mean, I like Rebel Moon Part 1. I do. Okay. It's great space opera. It is what it is. I kind of apologize for the film because I know what it is. And this is the question that I've been asking. I'm not talking about the way the film was put together. Yes, I have a problem with the editing. Part 2 is only really about an hour's worth of a good movie. Okay. You could have literally made a 2.5-hour movie by editing this down into one thing, and it would have been great. And I will probably go and do that the same way I did the Obi-Wan series into a 3-hour movie, which is much fucking better. Gets rid of stupid characters that don't need to be there. Editing saves movies. And like we've talked about with episode 1 here, since we're talking about the 25th anniversary of episode 1, which they're about to re-release it in theaters next week, the biggest fault of that movie is nobody told George Lucas no. Nobody had the fucking balls to do it.
And they even say that in the special edition, or not the special edition, but in the extras on the DVD. And like George even says it. Like Rick McCallum's like, I think we tried, maybe we could have cut some things here or there. And George even goes, well, I think our problem is we tried to do a little too much.
Okay.
Hey, look, that movie came out in 1999. I was literally 14 years old, or well, 15 years old. Okay. That was supposed to be my jam. I grew up with the original Star Wars movies, watching them every day on VHS tape. And I remember going to theaters and watching The Phantom Menace and leaving going, what did they do to my poor boy?
Yeah.
And like, I felt like Marlon Brando looking at a bullet-ridden body in front of him.
Stella!
Exactly.
That's the problem
I felt betrayed.
Yeah, and that's the problem with Zack Snyder. Nobody told him no. You didn't even have a good editor that could save your film because you wanted to do two-hour movies. Okay?
And now he wants to say, well, I have a lot of other material, and so if you get the director's cut made, it could go in a different direction, and then the director's cut from the new movie could go in even a further direction. So we'll have two multiverses going on, and we're like, fuck you.
I'm going to make your director's cut, but I'm going to edit it down to the kind of movie it should have been, so where it's not completely terrible.
But then he starts talking about how it's going to be two different diverging multiverses, and I'm like, all right, dude, like you literally just sat here 5 minutes ago telling me that voting for you is not a vote for the focus groups, and then you are literally making a focus group movie. But also, by the way, there isn't just either a vote for you or a vote for a focus group. I think there's a vote for a third movie, and that is somebody who's a competent filmmaker.
Hey, look, and not all focus group movies, I'm sorry, are inherently terrible. Focus groups do get some things right. You just have to be able to take that data and actually use it correctly. But
like, listen to the fans. Gee, what a novel concept.
You know why you watch dailies? To see what's working.
Hey, dude, it's a trap. The whole promise of more stuff is it's a bait and switch. He is using the popularity of his Snyder cut. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's still using it to just juice people, hoping it's like, well, maybe he'll give us don't ask. The Snyder cut shouldn't have happened in the first place. It shouldn't have happened because the first movie should have been good enough to where you didn't have to do it. And then when you did it, It should have been better than what it was fine.
So I will,
You know.
I'm almost willing to give a pass to the Snyder Cut just because of the circumstances around it, because he had to leave because of the situation with his daughter, and then another director came over and took over and did a basically different version of what he was going to do. So that's kind of a one-off situation. But that one-off situation, if you were being intellectually honest, does not apply to this situation because you have had control of the movies from the beginning.
Absolutely.
So, okay, this has been my biggest argument from the beginning. And again, I'm not, it makes it, I know I'm sounding like an apologist or whatever. I like the first movie. I do. I do kind of hate the second one. The last hour is great. I don't ever, I'm not going to be nitpicky or anything like that. Great action, whatever. But it's the climax. It's the third act of a great movie. That's all it should have been. You have too much crap in that movie to make it 2 hours that is unnecessary. And then all you do is use it to set up what should be a third movie. Basically, you're setting up your Dune Messiah. So in all actuality,
it should have taken a year to shoot this second movie anyway, just because the movie was filled with montages. There was at least
we
two
need a
different
montage.
It's like, oh, hey, watch me use tools from the 17th century to chop down wheat for no fucking reason.
Well, and you still right. We were.
And it was in slow mo.
We were talking about this the other day.
Chop wheat in slow mo. Oh my god.
I don't even understand the importance of wheat other than what wheat, brings, but you make it sound like it's more powerful. You're trying to make it sound like it's spice without explaining why the spice is important. Dude,
it's so bad. It's such a bad, I guarantee it was a Band-Aid. He wrote himself into a corner and he had to figure out, how do I make this make sense? And the wheat is the Band-Aid where he could string things together.
It doesn't even make sense because then they start shooting all the wheat, and I'm like, I thought the wheat was important.
So maybe the biggest problem with Zack Snyder is he doesn't know how to really world build, and he didn't do it properly with these movies. I'm not going to criticize him for using common themes or telling familiar stories, because everybody does that. That's not your problem. It's things are out of place. It's the order of things and how you tell a hero's story. Okay.
You don't do the character building 3.5 hours into a 4 or 5 hour freaking.
I will say this. I think it's got a great cast. Okay. It really does. And Sophia Boutella, I mean, she is really great in this movie. Does action, very well. Not going to get nitpicky about. I know that's a different conversation because we are running out of time. So I always get back to
good. Hunso Titus, he's good. Ed Skrein is good, but honestly, most of the rest of the actors are almost a little bit forgettable. And
he didn't give him anything to really do except fight.
Exactly.
Well, dimensional.
And I have to also say that Stas Nair, who played Tarak, I don't know what his deal is, but if I was to judge him as an actor based on these movies, he was bad.
Yeah. Okay.
He was bad.
So again, the biggest question I've always asked is, would these movies have been better if it was an actual Star Wars movie in a sandbox where he didn't have to world build? I say yes. I also think that if he had like Jon Favreau and Filoni as producers telling him no and getting involved, like, look, or a proper editor, it definitely would have been better.
What you're really saying is he needs handlers. That's what you're really saying.
I think there's a lot of directors that that need that. It's like you can come up with all the ideas in the world. I can't say anything because I've never, to making a movie. I don't have that experience. I don't make movies. I write novels.
But we can see the aftermath.
Right. But
just because we don't make movies doesn't mean we can't recognize when one's bad. I mean, that's the deal. I mean, that's
no, I agree. But my point is, whether you're telling a story in film, on the page or whatever, the building blocks of character development, your hero story, where things are placed are important. Okay. That's why I struggle with fantasy, because I don't want it to be like everything else. But I know there's an order to things of how these characters are introduced. I've spent more time revising, outlining than I've ever done in any novel in 25 years because this is new. Because I know that the building blocks have to be right, or I'm just being like, yeah, you don't really know what you're doing, and you're a better critic, blah blah blah. And I appreciate people when I talk about building the lore and stuff like that, that help walk me back from different ideas. And I'm willing to listen. And I have great friends that when we talk about lore and characters, they'll tell me if they're bad. Like, no, someone else has already done this. Makes me rethink. Zack Snyder didn't have people to tell him no. He didn't have handlers. And he just got to do whatever the fuck he wanted to do with a big budget. And that's not how you make a great epic movie. Okay.
Yep.
That's why George Lucas can be this great idea man, great storyteller, but have a great director and great, writers.
And you had Irvin Kershner, you had his ex-wife who was the editor, you had other directors. Like his biggest problems, and even though I will defend the prequels as nowhere near as bad the sequels, like there are things about the prequels I like. There is nothing about the sequels I like, but they're like, if he had just had a guiding hand in the prequels, we could have gotten far better movies, because the ideas were all there, the story was all there, and it just.
You know what Zack Snyder I want? I want the Dawn of the Dead Zack Snyder.
I will agree with you on that. I do.
That's who I want.
But I also don't hate the his cut of the Justice League. I actually enjoy it very much. But it's a sandbox where he didn't have to world build. And while you could argue about characters being too dark, whatever, it's DC. It's that universe of characters.
Let's be honest. The sandbox he didn't have to world build in, that he did the best at, was 300, because he didn't have to world build because history class did that for you in high school.
Right. So I think
at least we hope.
I would want to see this story as part of the rise of the rebellion. Okay, with proper storytellers writing the script, and you can do your own style of filmmaking or whatever, but people telling him no, and a good editor. If you'd had that as a Star Wars movie, would have been good.
Oh, and a good fight coordinator. How about that?
Yes. Oh, by the way, Lucasfilm, I'm sorry, you just brought this up, so I'm going to have to say this. Disney Lucasfilm, I implore you, going forward, I don't care what storylines you write, no matter how horrible they are, I implore you to hire the weapons master of the Jedi Temple, Sindralig, a.k.a. Nick Gillard, the choreographer of all of the prequel lightsaber fights. He's out there. He's ready to take your money, and he's very, very good. Please, for the love of God and all that is holy, the Force is strong with him.
The best lightsaber to date is Episode 3 with Anakin and Obi-Wan. 12 minutes. And even though you have scenes of Yoda fighting Darth Sidious and all that, the amount of work they put in, they choreographed everything, is beautiful. It's the best.
Think about that. There's that fight. There's the Yoda Sidious fight. There is the Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Darth Tyrannus twice. There is the Yoda versus Darth Tyrannus. Like, all of these fights, Maul, the 4 Jedi versus Sidious. This was all Nick Gillard, and he's out there waiting for you to call him back. Why haven't you?
Not enough people put enough stock into a good fight choreographer. Right? You're absolutely right. And I was telling Marcus this. I stopped in the middle of watching the movie, watching the fight scenes, and I wanted to find out who the fight coordinator was for this movie, and there isn't one. He doesn't have one. There's not one on the cast and crew.
And that's a shame because Nick
It
Gillard
is.
is out there and he's waiting for your call. And look, Nick Gillard is so good and he's so friendly. I've met him in person. He signed a picture, a Clone Wars still of Syndralig for me, and he's one of the nicest guys out there. He is working on a Star Wars project. I will tell you that he's working on a Star Wars project. He's doing all the choreography for Vader episodes 2 and 3 by the biggest Star Wars YouTuber out there, Star Wars Theory. So he is working on a Star Wars project. It's just not an official one. But yeah, Kathleen Kennedy, if you want some modicum of credibility before you retire and go off into the sunset with your husband, just you can do whatever storyline you want. Just bring back Nick, okay?
So, like I said, getting back to Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2, I call it a beautiful dream that just didn't really land. And, I can have fun with great space opera. I think when we look back at it, it'll be one of these kind of fun, really bad movies that you can enjoy just for being bad. But it's a B sci-fi space opera.
It's
It
Kroll.
tries too hard to be good to enjoy it being bad.
Yeah.
The
I don't know. I
bad
think
movies that you
enjoy
for being bad know they're bad.
I guess I agree with what you're saying there, Jimmy, but I guess 10 years of distance might allow us to be able to chuckle more.
I don't know. There are plenty of movies that came out 10, 15 years ago that I'm not going to watch again. I don't know.
True.
There are plenty of movies out there.
When we go back and we kind of look at the prequels, I think we often talk about the fan cuts that made it better. Like when they put the entire prequel trilogy into one film called The Fall of the Jedi. It's 2.5 hours long and it's perfect. Gets you everything you need to know. I kind of look at that. See, there's a part of me that actually wants a third Rebel Moon movie to complete the story so it can be edited down properly into one great epic.
Yeah, but according to him, he wants a trilogy in 6 parts. So basically, Rebel Moon Part 1 and Part 2, that's the first movie. And then there'll be Rebel Moon Part 2, Parts 3, and Part 4.
Right.
And that's the second
That's
movie.
what I tell him. Whatever brownie you got, you don't eat all of it at once before you start talking.
I mean, look, if
we've learned anything from hippie grandma, take a quarter and
have to convince someone with more money.
Yeah,
like the Netflix is willing to.
What? Hey,
Netflix is not going to co-sign that.
No. I think you've given enough money to that. Why do you think I don't eat half a hippie grandma brownie before I record a podcast? Because I'm like, I don't want to be drooling and just talking about nonsense. I'm like, no, got to pace yourself here.
I don't know. One of those brownies might make the movie watch.
You know what? I would almost be willing for the 3 of us and maybe Chad to get together if Chad ever figured out his technical issues to get together, and whether it's a brownie or a gummy or whatever, pop one. Watch drunk. Rebel Moon Part 1 and then Mystery Science Theater 3000 it together. I would be down for that.
I'm still gonna have fun with the movies. I may watch them. We
can call it watching movies at 30,000 feet.
Oh my god! Yeah. So if you haven't seen Rebel Moon Part 1 yet, you could literally skip the first hour and just get to the action scene. That's all you really need. The rest of it is not important. I mean, I do like the scene where they're telling their secrets and she won't really come out yet, and about that she was the one who assassinated the princess, and then she learns that the princess is not dead, and blah blah blah.
But she doesn't learn that until the movie's over.
I know.
That's
it's out of place. I agree.
The girl who was the key to everything killed the girl who was the key to everything, but didn't kill the girl who was the key to everything, and didn't find out that she was the girl the key to everything until the end of the movies.
Yes.
Oh, and don't forget who dropped the bomb. It was Titus, the guy who shouldn't even know that. Why does he have that information? That's not who is he? He's not in. Why does he know that? He doesn't. He shouldn't. That's not
Like,
something he has to tell.
it's important that he kicks ass in the movie. That's what's important. Don't try to overthink the rest of the bad storytelling. That's
The
how I go into
robots
watching.
should have been the one to say
Don't
it.
don't
But you know
apply
what?
logic to it. Don't apply logic to a Zack Snyder movie. It has
No.
no place here.
I actually have the poster from Rebel Moon Part 1. I framed it and keep it in my living room. And I'm like, I'm still going to do it for two reasons. One, I think it's a really cool poster. And two, I think you can celebrate kind of bad movies. And when you look at all the versions of the Magnificent Seven, whether it's original Seven Samurai, the Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen, I like the Denzel Washington remake. I thought he put together a really good cast and it was fun. This is just one more version of it. In fact, I think what I should do, just for decorative standpoint, is I should have a line of posters of just all the versions of the Seven Samurai. Yeah, anyway,
There's probably 7 of them.
probably.
You can have someone walk into your house. Have you seen all these movies? Oh, it's all the same movie. And yeah,
Exactly. That's the joke. So, I will ask one final question, and we'll end this for the night. Are you guys tired of
lost the
Zack
camera.
Snyder? All right, Jimmy is just freezing.
yeah, I lost my camera.
It'll just
Oh,
be.
we can still hear him. He's still there, so he can answer.
Yes.
Well, anyway, are you tired of Zack Snyder? Will you give Zack Snyder another chance in a movie?
Oh yeah. I mean, here's the deal. He tackles too many cool subjects. I don't know why they keep giving them to him, but he tackles too many cool subjects for me not to watch his movies.
Right.
It's like, I mean, it might as well be heroin.
And here's our
You know,
free
you
ad.
don't like the drug dealer.
Here's our free ad for EOS webcam utility.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Beta.
All right, Brendan, would you try another Zack Snyder movie?
Because you
Obviously
pay me
not.
to. No, and all right, full disclosure, Marcus doesn't pay me to, but I get a lot of shit for free because of Marcus. So there's inherent value there, which I should probably file a 1099 for, but I'm not going to because fuck the IRS.
All right.
But anyway, because look, we don't get that much, and I'd have to itemize a shit ton more. So anyway, yeah, I guess I probably will, for no other reason than morbid curiosity. I think he has the potential to make some really good films, but I think the problem is he's gotten so much power from his early successes that there are no constraints reigning in his more destructive, or I should say self-destructive tendencies. And that is an inherent problem. Do I think he's capable of making a very fun movie? Yes. Do I think he's going to in the future? 50-50. But if I had to tell you that, if you had asked me this based on the two directors we've talked about most today, who am I looking forward to their next project more? 100% Guy Ritchie.
Yeah. I will say this. I will always give Zack Snyder a chance as long as I'm not paying for it. That's how I
Amen.
come. But there's also a part of me that with handlers, okay, a proper editor, I would like to actually see him make a Star Wars movie. You know,
I'd like to see him make a movie with, I know this sounds really weird, but I honestly think they could balance each other out enough where if you saw Zack Snyder team up with Michael Bay and Jerry Bruckheimer, you probably will actually get a really good summer popcorn flick.
That's true.
I think
And
they would kill each other. I think Michael Bay would blow Zack Snyder up, and Zack Snyder would poison him with bad dialogue.
you know what the greatest irony would be?
But I think Jerry Bruckheimer is the secret sauce there that would get them to work together and bring out the best part of each other.
Here's the greatest irony that I think would happen. He actually gets to make a Marvel movie, and he's the one that saves the Marvel universe. James Gunn actually saves the DC reverse. We just
As
flipped.
fans, we can only hope.
Yeah, that's how we come down. All right,
Hey,
let us
it's the
know
record
your
of my favorite Marvel movies. So what are you gonna
let
do?
us know your thoughts about Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2. You can tweet at us at that nerd show. We're very curious, and if you have not watched Shogun yet, it is completely done. You should binge watch it one weekend, as well as the Fallout series. And yeah, can't believe we're actually saying it. We're definitely looking forward to Fallout Season 2. So
100%.